What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A03s and the Umidigi Power 5. So let's get started. So the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a 6.5-inch PLS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. Besides the bottom bezel right here that's a little bit thicker than the rest, we got some pretty thin bezels and a nice looking display overall for just being a 720p entry-level phone. And we also got a pretty slim, stylish looking design, so really not bad. For the front-facing camera here, we got a water drop notch, and this camera is 5 megapixels. The Umidigi Power 5 also has a 6.5-inch display, and this is an LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 160, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. We also got a water drop notch up here, and this camera is 8 megapixels. So I have both displays at 100% brightness, and the Samsung Galaxy A03s definitely looks a lot brighter and a lot more high quality overall. In addition to this, the Umidigi Power 5 has slightly thicker bezels, and overall, I do think the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a much nicer looking, more modern design. Now with that being said, neither of these displays are really anything super special. 6.5 inches, LCD type of display, 720p, all that is pretty standard for an entry-level phone, so none of it is really surprising. But with that being said, 6.5 inches is a really good size for a display because it is going to be large enough to give you a good experience with content consumption, but at the same time, it's not so large that it's going to be uncomfortable to hold and carry around in your pocket. Now for storage, the Samsung Galaxy A03s has 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and the Umidigi Power 5 has 128 gigabytes of internal storage, also with microSD card expansion. So there's a huge difference here. The Umidigi Power 5 is going to have such an advantage over the Samsung Galaxy A03s in terms of storage. While you're definitely going to need a microSD card with the A03s because 32 gigabytes, even for an average user, is still not that much. You're probably going to go through it pretty fast. With the Umidigi Power 5, unless you're a power user and have a lot of photos and videos, you're probably not even going to need the microSD card. You can't really operate apps from a microSD card either, so having more space on the phone itself is going to be a lot better. Because of this, the Umidigi Power 5 has a huge advantage in storage. Neither of these phones have wireless charging, which is not very surprising, but both of them have a fingerprint scanner and face unlock, so we get some nice security options here. Both these fingerprint scanners are found right here on the power keys, so let's go ahead and test them out to see how well they work. Starting with the Samsung Galaxy A03s. There we go, one more time. And there we go. Real fast and responsive, no issues here. Moving on to the Umidigi Power 5. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So both these fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. I have no complaints here. Now taking a look at the rear camera setups, the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a triple camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. The Umidigi Power 5 has a triple camera setup as well, with a 16 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. And there's also a thermometer right here in case anyone wants a thermometer on their phone. So overall, these phones do have some real similar features, but one thing I do want to point out is that while the Umidigi Power 5 has portrait mode on the phone itself, this mode doesn't really work because this phone doesn't have a depth sensor, so you can't really blur out the backgrounds. I mean, maybe someone else has gotten a good portrait mode photo with this phone, but in the many times I've tried, I couldn't get one. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A03s, not only did portrait mode actually work, but it worked way better than I ever expected an entry-level phone's portrait mode to work. I mean, this picture looks awesome, and I could definitely see using this phone to take pictures for social media or something else that you'd really want to keep. As far as the rest of the cameras go, neither of them take bad photos per se, but I do think the Samsung Galaxy A03s definitely has a better camera overall. So if you do want to take photos you're going to be keeping for social media or maybe just your own memory, the Samsung Galaxy A03s is going to have a huge advantage. But if you just want a decent camera to use every once in a while, the Umidigi Power 5, while not being as good as the Samsung Galaxy A03s, is still gonna be okay. Now internally, the Samsung Galaxy A03s is getting 3GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P35 processor. The Umidigi Power 5 is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio G25 processor. I ran Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and the Samsung Galaxy A03s came back with a single core score of 175 and a multi-core score of 891, and the Umidigi Power 5 came back with a single core score of 145 and a multi-core score of 857. So both of these phones are real solid tier entry-level phones. They're not going to be nearly as slow as some of the bottom tier entry-level phones, but they're still really going to be more for basic activities like sending text messages, browsing the web, going on social media, streaming videos, that sort of thing. You're not really going to be able to do super high-end activities with them. But with that being said, if you're on your phone a lot, browsing the web, going on social media and stuff like that, either of these phones are going to be acceptable for that purpose, although they might lag a little on apps like Instagram and TikTok where there are lots of graphics. As far as comparing them to each other, technically the Samsung Galaxy A03s is going to have a little bit more processing power, as you could see from that Geekbench 5 benchmark test, but at the same time, it's really going to be so unnoticeable that there are probably going to be times where the Umidigi Power 5 is going to run a little bit better, and other times where the A03s runs a little bit better. In terms of the operating system and stuff like that, I mean, both phones have Android 11. I do like Samsung's skin a little bit better, but at the same time, I haven't had any performance issues with either of these phones. Now for battery, the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a 5,000 mAh battery that supports 15 watt fast charging, and the Umidigi Power 5 has a 6,150 mAh battery that supports 10 watt fast charging. So both of these phones have really good batteries, but I would say the Umidigi Power 5 having a noticeably larger battery does have an advantage here. With a battery this large, you're not only going to get a ton of life throughout the day and be able to charge it up decently fast with 10 watt fast charging, but you're also going to get a lot of longevity. When the battery starts to wear out, it's not going to be as noticeable as with a smaller battery. And while the same principle applies to the Samsung Galaxy A03s, I mean, a 5,000 mAh battery is no joke still. With the Umidigi Power 5's battery being over 20% larger, it's going to last for even longer. So if you want to get one phone and keep it for a long period of time, while both of these phones are going to be a great option for that, the Umidigi Power 5 is going to be the best. Now, as far as other features go, these phones really aren't too feature heavy, but I will point out that the Umidigi Power 5 has what's called a smart key, which basically gives you 3 extra shortcuts. You can get to it through the settings menu. As you can see here in the settings menu, there are a couple of different things you can do with it. You can use it to take screenshots, open apps, do all that. In case you're interested in learning more about the smart key, I do have a tips and tricks video for the Umidigi Power 5 on the channel, so definitely check that out. But essentially, the smart key isn't really a game changer. It basically just gives you a few more shortcuts. So if you're into that kind of thing, you might like the Umidigi Power 5 a little bit better for that reason. Now, in conclusion, which of these phones is actually better? This is honestly a really close one, but I personally would say the Samsung Galaxy A03s is a slightly better device, although a clear argument could be made for the Umidigi Power 5. The reason I like the Samsung Galaxy A03s a little bit better is because it has a much nicer looking display, a more modern, better looking design, and in addition to just looking better, this design feels a lot more solid, whereas with the Umidigi Power 5, even though it doesn't feel bad, the buttons and overall design of it feel a little bit more flimsy than the Samsung Galaxy A03s. Now, this isn't a huge difference, but it's one I noticed all the same. In addition to that, the Samsung Galaxy A03s has a much better camera in my opinion. Even though it doesn't have an ultra-wide camera, the pictures it takes look much better. And if I were taking photos for social media and stuff like that, I would rather use the Samsung Galaxy A03s than the Umidigi Power 5. And while the difference in processing power between these two phones is so close it's almost negligible, the Samsung Galaxy A03s does technically have a more powerful processor. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you're on your phone a lot. I mean, technically on paper, these are so close, but I feel like if you're on the web, going on social media and stuff all the time, the A03s is probably just gonna hold up a little bit better. I just have that feeling. But then again, the Umidigi Power 5 is definitely not bad either. Now the case for the Umidigi Power 5 is it has so much more storage, quadruple the amount of storage as the Samsung Galaxy A03s. Now if you're a big fan of the microSD card, this might not matter as much, but the fact remains that having storage on the phone itself is so much more convenient than a microSD card, and if you have a lot of apps, having more internal storage is of course going to be better for that too. In addition to that, the Umidigi Power 5 does have the smart key, which makes shortcuts a lot more convenient, and it has a significantly larger battery too. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for a solid entry-level phone and you're planning on being on your phone a little bit more than the average person, either of these phones will be a great option. I personally like the Samsung Galaxy A03s a little bit better, but if you're a power user and need a lot of internal storage, you want an ultra-wide camera, or you're really concerned about battery life, the Umidigi Power 5 is going to be a better option for you. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and as always, I will see you in the next video.